So much for your patience this evening. We are now moving on with the hearing of the public. Anybody that has anything that they would like to address to the board can step forward to the mic. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. At the 30-second mark remaining, you'll be alerted. And our total time for the hearing of the public at this time is 30 minutes. We'll have a second hearing of the public later. We'd ask that you state your name and your address for the record.
Katie Sunderland, 6416 North Ridge Road West, Geneva. I stand before you not just as a teacher, but also a community member and a parent of 2 Eagles. My oldest is going to be a 7th grader at the middle school, and my youngest is a 5th grader at Cork. Both of them have been students in the district since they were in kindergarten. My son started middle school this past school year and was interested in extracurricular activities that he read about in books. He most wanted to join yearbook committee, but there is no yearbook committee at the middle school. There are no after-school activities in the middle school unless you are into sports, which my son and my daughter are both not sports-oriented. This is not a jab at our sports program. I am grateful for the Ashtabula County Library that have stepped up and asked for a levy to provide programs at the Geneva branch for our students who are not into sports so that they can participate in different activities and form relationships with other students outside the classroom. For years, the district did their best to cut costs without putting out students and their families. This all came to a head when a failed levy made it to where we had to step down to state minimum busing. There were more cuts to come, including closing down Austinburg Elementary, which would have led to increased class sizes at the elementary level and the reduction in force for a whole building. A group of parents took up the cause and hit the ground running. They raised money, they hired a consultant, they held informational meetings, and they went door to door. All that hard work paid off. A levy passed for the first time in decades. It was another group of parents that did the work to raise the money and install the door locks that are now in our schools for our student safety. Sorry. We have some pretty amazing family support in the district. At every level, they see a need, whether it is to give the custodial staff a new vacuum cleaner or leading a campaign to get a levy passed. They step up and get it done. The community has responded to the students' needs and said, yes, we will give you the money you need to restore services and activities. In the 4 years since the levy has passed, the community hasn't seen these services come back completely. They ask questions because they want answers, and none are forthcoming. I have seen and spoken to many community members that are not going to vote for any more levies for the school district because of what is going on. That group of parents that stepped up in the district's time of need will not be there the next time. Good luck getting another levy passed. Our school district is in a precarious position. The choices that are made now are going to have a deep impact into years to come. It is up to you whether it is going to be a positive or negative impact. You can't have a strong community without a strong school district. If you don't understand that, then South Eagle Street will become the ghetto that you think it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy Diefenbacher, 5625 St. Thomas Lane, Madison, Ohio. I'm speaking to you today as a parent of a Geneva High School 4-year member of the Majorettes. I contacted you in April regarding the Majorette Advisor position, Majorette Advisor position, one that is on the payroll, for you to please put it on the payroll. I know that you have been negotiating with the teachers union on the salary of the position. The teachers union is asking for a fair wage for the position. There's a standstill over about $400. This is ridiculous. It is now the end of July, and our majorettes do not have an advisor. Band camp begins August 1st. The Gridiron Parade is August 13th, and the first football game is August 19th. What are these girls supposed to do? They have been working since June on the drills and the basics, but they have no routines. My daughter, Tegan Gilbert, is the captain this year. This is a position that she has dreamed of. She was so excited for this year's season. Instead of enjoying the start of the season, she's been stressed and standing in as the advisor that they do not have. She really wanted to work a summer job this summer, but she wasn't able to because she's already working an adult job that she's not getting paid for. This is too much to ask of a teenager. She should not have these kinds of responsibilities thrust on her at this time. This is your responsibility, every single one of yours. And you need to take care of this ongoing issue. This has been going on for months. GATA feels that compensation should be 0.05, not 0.04, so they can fill the position with a qualified individual. Looking at the other salaries for similar positions in our area, you can see that the board is being unreasonable. PV's color guard advisor is compensated at 0.9. Conneaut's majorette advisor is compensated at 0.5. The drill team advisor at Conneaut is compensated 0.05. Grand Valley pays 0.065 for their flagline advisor. GATA's request of 0.05 is very reasonable. Again, I ask you to think of these students, put them first, and come to agreement tonight on this issue. Let's just get this done.
Tegan Gilbert, 4726 South Ridge Road. I am a senior this year, and I am head majorette of the line. I was looking forward to enjoying my senior year in the summer before it. I spent my summer filling in as advisor since the position hasn't been filled. This is not the way I plan to spend my summer or this season with the girls. It's been extremely stressful and time-consuming job for me. I have not been able to build friendships or just have fun with the other majorettes. It's sad I am working and stressing over the future of the season. We are only 3 weeks away from the first game and still need routines. I ask you to please do the right thing and come to agreement with the teachers union on this timely issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kylie Cronin, 1080 Mechanicsville Road, Rock Creek, Ohio. I'm going into my second year of being a majorette and first year of being the featured twirler. This year has been very stressful because we have a limited amount of time to make routines with no advisor. Usually the featured twirler does solos in the routines, but since we have no advisor this year, I'm on my own to make up solos along with new routines on a time limit. Thank you.
Kaylin King, 890 South Nearing Circle. My name is Kaylin King, and I am an incoming freshman and a new GHS majorette. It has been my dream to twirl for Marching Geneva since I was 5 years old. I was so excited to not only try out, but to make the majorette line my first year. I was looking forward to not only having so much fun, but also making friendships that will last a lifetime. At tryouts, we found out that we currently do not have an advisor, and we were told to do what we can until everything was resolved. Great, we did that. We all learned or refreshed ourselves on our trick lists and traditional things like We Got the Beat, the Hay Song, and parade routines. We are now 1 week from band camp and 3 weeks from our first game, and we do not have enough material to put on our performance at that first game. This is scary, stressful, and sad for us because it is taking away from an experience that should be fun and enjoyable. I should be learning new tricks, skills, and routines along with getting to know my advisor. We should also be creating bonds with each other as a team instead of trying to create routines. We shouldn't have to be told over and over again that it is being worked on, when in reality, it feels as if we are just being pushed aside and left with no answers. I understand that things have to be worked through, but it seems as if you are putting a price tag on our happiness, learning, and our future for not only us, but the future majorette lines and the current or future advisors. All we ask is that you please think of not only the adults in this, but the students being affected as well. I ask you, where is our advisor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Angie Williams. I'm 384 State Road. My daughter's a freshman this year, and it's heartbreaking to know they don't have a majorette coach. They need somebody to help them figure out these routines. It's not easy. I did it in high school 4 years. I went through the same thing, and it's hard. They lose faith in it. It's something that's dying, and they need a coach. There's 9 of them. I've never seen a majorette line that big before. It's exciting to have that many. And have 9, you can do so much with it. But they can't because there's nobody to teach them to do it. So you guys need to figure something out and get them a coach. Thank you.
Brock Pearson, 56 Erie Street. I just wanted to talk today, and hopefully not at a point of contention. I saw the minutes that talked about the marketing agency, and I'm not here to talk about how much it was. I don't think you guys really even overspent, but I want to talk about, as someone who works in the marketing industry and is like literally insured in the industry and has worked in it since I was 16 to 17, I was really surprised at learning that there were only 3 prospects, one of which I know, one of which is really credible. I'm sure you chose them for a specific reason. But I want to talk about, one, the difference between branding the school and the difference between saving money on a salary for a public official, and then putting out basically a description for someone who does multiple ad purchasing contacts for branding for a school. I guess I didn't understand that. And I'm sure that there are caveats behind it. But I guess my issue is, and what I would bring to you that people are upset about, is we have school books, history books, from when the Soviet Union was still established and there was an East and West Berlin. I don't think you advocate for that. We have steps for the majorettes. This institution in Geneva has existed from the 80s. It's the landmark breakout. You hear We Got the Beat, and you know exactly what it's about. You watch the drumline go to their knees. You know, I had to play that song so much I like can't even explain how much hearing it brings back like flashbacks, but I would still happily play it. We have to take that part of the community and build on that and not make these perpetual contingencies. Well, if you want this done, we need to know this. I'm getting a lot of that. I'm being told that we're the reason, the community is the reason that people don't want to work here. I find that very hard to believe. I find that impossible to believe. I hear that we spread lies. There's nothing I want more than every person on this stage to be a hero and be like, you know what, we had enough. We objectively listened to you. At first, we thought this sounds too crazy to be true. And then that we went into it, this much was hyperbolic. This much actually was something that we needed to take action upon. And then we disagree on certain points, but we move forward. You can think half, 3/4, 90% of what I say sucks. But if you just listen to that 10% of the community, and you act upon that, that would build a lot of confidence upon what you guys are doing. I've had different conversations with every single person up here. I've met every single person on the stage in some capacity, and outside of your roles, I've never had an issue. Up on this stage, I do not understand from a productivity standpoint, from a professional standpoint, if I operated as an employee at my business, as this board has done in decision-making and executables and purchasing, and requests for production, and only accepting 3 to 4 bids from anything from superintendent, which was during the pandemic, I get it, but to marketing agencies, there is a lack of competency, and it needs to be filled by someone who is a trusted advisor. And the person who is in that role right now, I do not trust to make these decisions, because having seen people make the correct decisions, people whom I don't like, who made them correctly, I didn't have to have this conversation with them. I didn't have to have this critique of them. So all I'm asking is, if we could please consistently move forward, if we can look at things like these requests from anything from Smolin Construction to a marketing agency that helps alleviate time by creating consistent correspondence with the community, which we all agree we need. I agree, you agree. That's one thing that I'm not going to pick on you for. If we could take our time, use our diligence to do it correctly, that would solve a lot of these problems. It would make it so you don't have to, in a hurry, in a rush, have 1.5 to 2 weeks to have an institution of Geneva solved. You wouldn't have to hire a branding and marketing agency under the OSBA guides. I called them today and talked to them about why they recommend this, and now I fully understand it. I would have much rather had that information from you in hand so I could have been like, oh, that makes sense. It helps alleviate time of staff.
30 seconds.
When we don't have those things, we're going to come up here and be contentious because it seems like we are being ignored. And that is why this community is rallied. I talked to a few of you, Ms. Metzler, Ms. Dixon, and you said, what can we do to listen to you? And you asked for input. That would be my recommendation, is even if something is stupid, just hear them out and let them know you'll consider it. And if it's dumb and you don't do it and you have a reason why, you can come back with a nice face and say, you know, we
That's
talked
time.
about it.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Lauren Webster. I am over on Ridge Road over in Wickliffe, Lake County. Perhaps the address that's more important this evening is going to be 860 Sherman Street. And if that sounds familiar, that's because it is the address for the Geneva Public Library, where I am the branch manager and the outreach services manager. So I really wanted to just take this opportunity to kind of touch on an event that is a first for us, but we're hoping is going to be successful, kind of piggybacking on an event that is happening at the school district. We have our open houses that are coming up at all of our schools. August 25th, I believe, is the date for most of those open houses. Over at the library, we are also going to have an open house, and the intention behind that is to make sure that we get the word out and invite, folks on the school board, our students, their families, our educators in the Geneva School District, but giving them the invitation to come on over and learn a little bit about what we have on offer at the library, the supports that we have available to assist not only our educators and our students, but their extended families. We have all kinds of books. That's the first thing you're going to think about with the library. We have those, let me assure you. But we also have a lot of resources that the community may not be as familiar with. Things like test preparation services, which might be really important if you've got high school age kids, especially. Kids looking for study guides for things like SAT and ACT testing. We've got that covered. We are happy to share that with our educators, with our students, and with their families. We have foreign language supports through Transparent Language. It's a database that we offer that is absolutely wonderful with helping to guide through that language learning process. We've got a science and reference center that's available digitally. We would love to have more students and more educators take advantage of those resources as they are available through the public library. Everything around us is so much more expensive, especially these last few months. But just to remind everybody here, in case you don't know, that library card that you have, it is absolutely free. Please take advantage of using that. But again, really my point here tonight is I want to invite you, our school board members. I want to invite our teaching staff in the district. I'd like to invite our students and their families to join us on the evening of August the 25th. It's a Thursday. It's going to be the same day that we have open houses for our schools. From 6 to 8 p.m., we are going to be holding our open house over at Geneva Public Library. Again, inviting folks to come on in, learn about the things that we have on offer to support our students, our educators, and their families. I will have probably some pizza and refreshments available, also free, because that's the thing that we like at the library. Please take advantage. Come on over. We'd love to share with you the ways that we are here to support you, the students, and our students' families. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on with the remainder. I'm sorry? Yeah.
I just want to make a comment in regards to the majorettes. Certainly, while we cannot talk about negotiations, I know that it was mentioned at the last month's board meeting that we were waiting at that point to hear back from GATA. We have we have since gotten a response from them, and we have responded back to them. In no way, shape, or form is there any intention of cutting or doing away with the majorettes. They will still continue to go forward under the direction of the responsibilities of the assistant band director is where they fall.
Okay, we will move on with the remainder of the agenda. We'll need a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
A motion for the treasurer's financial report.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
A motion for the approval of invoices.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. Madam President, Kevin, can you touch on what the price of fuel is going to, how it's going to impact us at the start of the school year?
Well, the price of fuel hit its highest point during the last school year. Right now, it seems to be going down. So, as the price changes each time we fill the tanks, I won't really see what it is, but we obviously have increased the appropriation of the budget that we devote towards purchasing the supplies for transportation, which the fuel falls under. So I don't, unless it spikes up again drastically, the hope would be that it would kind of remain where it was during the course of last year, and it shouldn't have that big of an impact on us. I mean, obviously, we're paying more than we paid in previous years, but
Has it impacted us?
well, yes, for that particular line item, we have paid more than we have in previous years, but we have
No
to absorb
control.
those costs. It's a cost of doing business.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Sure. Any other discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes. Informational items.
You have the investment report. We haven't yet really been able to take advantage of the rates that have also gone up, but we have just booked 5 different purchases so that we're seeing those 3% or much higher rate on shorter term. But we have to wait for maturities, and we have to wait until we receive our real estate second half settlement before we have additional monies to invest. So.
Mrs. Dixon, the legislative report this evening?
Yes. I spoke with, as I know Kevin did as well, David Thomas, who's our county auditor, regarding HB 126. Excuse me, I just put a mint in my mouth. I apologize. Shouldn't have done that. Anyway, HB 126, it's effective July 22nd, which is Friday. And it's changes in property values and removing the requirement that the county auditor have to inform the school districts when their property value changes according to a percentage and all that. So Mr. Thomas and I talked, and he said also that he and Kevin had talked, and that he is going to do a portal on the county website that will allow school districts to access that information whenever they want. We were thinking we may need to do a regular public records request for that information, but David's going to put it right there on the county auditor website, and Kevin's office can access it, or anyone can access it anytime they want. So that information is still going to be readily accessible, just not in the way that it was prior to the passage of that bill. And that's all I have. Congress is in recess until September 13th, so I probably won't have very much in August either. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fisher, an ATEC report this evening?
Well, I had my ATEC board meeting on Monday. We were done in 40 minutes. We paid some bills, we got the investment reports, and we were done. So it's a nice slow time at ATEC.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to the report of the superintendent this evening.
Laura Jones, our Director of Food Services, will give a summary of our 22-23 food service operation. Sorry, actually, that's a typo. 21-22 food service operation, along with a look at the plans for the 22-23 school year.
This is the first full year in a couple years since COVID that we've had the students here every day. So participation was up. It was the second year that everyone ate free, so participation was up. As you can tell, lunch receipts were down because everyone ate free. But they continued to give us more government reimbursement as the year went on to make up for that. They also continued to give us money for supply chain assistance because we found that several items were consistently out of stock. The bids that we had were no longer valid as they declared force majeure, which means an act of God, whatever. So our costs were significantly higher, but we continued to serve the requirements for the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program. If you look at our total reimbursements minus our total expenses, the difference there is the $123,000 that was in transit from the year before, because that came in July, and so that was on last year. So it shows that we are higher, but if you subtract that out, then we balance to our ending balance. Our lunch participation and our breakfast participation was up, so that's good news. The bad news is, as of today, so far, they're saying that there will not be free meals next year. However, that can change. The Secretary of Agriculture has the authority to issue nationwide waivers for the program year 2022-23, but has not done so yet. They do have senators that are currently trying to pass the Keep Kids Fed Act permanently. So again, that may change, but at this point, they are just anticipating that schools will go back to pre-COVID, pre-pandemic. So much so that in the second packet that I gave you that says lunch prices, the one that's on letterhead, they have issued a standard letter that we should be sending to the parents stating that that the families that benefited from no-cost school meals made possible for special permissions. Unfortunately, those permissions have expired. So, that being said, we are looking at putting out our free and reduced lunch application next year, or actually as soon as possible, so people can begin filling out those free and reduced lunch forms in the event that school lunches are not free next year. Paid lunch equity, which is also a requirement of the National School Lunch Program. Because we were negative $15,000 as of December 31st, 2021, we are required to adjust our lunch price. The 2021-22 weighted average price equal to or above the target $3.31 to be compliant for the 2022-23 school year. The $3.31 is the difference between the free and paid reimbursement rates. On the packet that you have that says lunch prices, that shows a history of us raising our lunch prices. We have not raised our lunch prices since July of 2018. It was very difficult to get a price comparison for other districts because school meals were free for the last 2 years. So the price comparison I have is for the 2018-2019 school year. In order to be compliant with the paid lunch equity, obviously we are not going to be able to raise our prices to $3.31. But I would propose that we raise 10 cents to bridge that gap to be in compliance. My hopes are that everybody's going to be free, but if not, we need to be prepared to have prices that reflect the paid lunch equity calculator.
Laura, I have a lot of questions, but I'll just ask one.
Okay.
So what happens come the first day of school when the legislature's not been in session and so we don't know whether or not they'll be paid? What happens?
Okay, so my state consultant has told me at this point, the first day of school, lunches will go back to being paid. However, because several people did not turn in free and reduced lunch applications for the last couple years because lunch was free, we are to use the most current application that we have on file. So for some people, that might be 2019, 2020 school year.
Okay.
If they have a new application on file, then we need to use the most current. So, I mean, suppose you had somebody that started first grade last year, and they didn't know to fill out a form. But we will get those applications on the website, and we will get paper applications in the buildings. And the first day of school, we will send home paper applications with the students as well. So anyone that has a previous status of free or reduced, they will start school for the first 30 days on that current previous status,
Okay.
or until they get a new application in. People that receive food stamps, which are the SNAP program or Ohio Works First, those people will receive a letter prior to school starting that says, because you are on this meal benefit program, you will not have to fill out an application. You will automatically be free. Now, that's tricky because sometimes they may not have all their kids listed the same way we have them enrolled. So if Bobby Jr. is enrolled in Geneva as Bobby Jr., but he goes by Robert James, it will not match up on the food stamps. So those students, those parents will need to let me know, 3 of my children, I got a letter saying they're free, but the other one wasn't. So we will do our best to make sure, and those first few weeks of school, we let everybody go. I mean, it's not our intent to have anyone go without food, obviously.
So the first day of school, Bobby Jr. is going to be able to eat lunch,
Absolutely.
whether or not, okay.
Absolutely.
And how, okay, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I ask one question? Will
Sure.
we, so since we're going back to paying, will it be the same app that we've previously paid
Yes.
on?
And that will also be on the website. It will also be passed out at all the orientations and all the open houses. It's My School Bucks, where parents can put money online. They can, for free, even if they don't put money online, they can see their students' transactions. Suppose you gave Bobby Jr. $5, but he bought 5 ice creams, then you can call me and say, why is he eating that many ice cream? We will also have the same free and reduced lunch application, the online form, so if people would rather just feel more comfortable doing it online, we'll do that as well. We also fingerprinted the middle school students toward the end of the school year, so that's much more confidential, so the students don't feel different, you know, like if they're just punching in their code or putting their fingerprints in, it's just the same as if they were free reduced or their mom put money on their account. So that will help get kids through the line because it's going to be a big transition from just grabbing your meal and walking by, saying hello to Zena, and you're on your way. So they're going to have to stop and see if they have money in their account. So.
And the My School Bucks follows the child, regardless of what
Yes.
building they're in,
Yes.
right?
Anyone in the district.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Mrs. Jones, I'd like to ask about your staffing for next year. Do you have an indication on how well you'll be staffed?
We have an excellent staff. I'm so glad you brought that up. Not only do we have an excellent staff, but we were also able to have Several staff members go to the Serve Safe training certification. So we have all of our kitchen managers, all of our head cooks, and then some backup people that all have Serve Safe certification and the Ohio State Food Safety certification. So far we are fully staffed. That's not to say that we may have some last minute, I decided to move to Texas. But we do have trained subs that I anticipate will be fully staffed.
Very good.
Oh, you're like a ray of sunshine. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
It was just so nice to be able to have Santa come back and Spider-Man visit the kids, and it was a good year. It was good to have everybody back in school.
Thank you for
So-
the pictures, too. That's nice.
Oh, thanks. So then the question is, do we raise the lunch prices 10%? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Laura, can you state that again? Because I don't see where you have it on any of the information you gave the board. So what is your recommendation?
Raising the lunch prices 10 cents. So it would be $2.90 for the elementary and $3.15 in the middle and high school.
She doesn't have a recommendation there.
So going with this chart?
Yep.
Yeah, it's right there.
And in doing so, that will get us closer to the $3.31 weighted average price that we're supposed to target.
I'm sorry, say that again. Where did you get the 331?
For the lunch program, if you have a negative on your account, December, so this one said December 31st, 2021. And actually it was hard to do this because previously it says, like, they make you put it into a calculator. And when they come around to review and do an audit, they want to see this for every single year. Well, the reason this was very hard is because it asks you for the number of paid lunches and the price of your paid lunches. Well, we haven't had a paid lunch for the last 2 years.
Right.
So instead of that calculation, they want to know if you were negative December 31st, 2021, then you have to meet this target, which says is $3.31, and the $3.31 is the difference between the free and paid reimbursement rates for the 2021-22 school year.
Is that somewhere in what you gave us?
No, but I can send it to you, or I can give you the copy I have.
So
Give me
this,
that. No, I'm just kidding.
will this be sufficient for what the state wants, your recommendation here?
We will be below the target, but as long as we are showing that we are moving toward that target. I mean, obviously, they don't want you to make your lunch price so high that your participation completely plummets. The free lunches were very helpful for us because it had students that typically maybe didn't buy in the past were buying, but now their parents are saying, hey, I have 3 kids. They're all not eating all 5 days. They have to pick 2 days, and that's what we're going with. So obviously, you don't want to discourage people and price them out of participation.
Right.
And then, Laura, are there consequences from the state as far as what if we don't? What happens when we don't meet their target?
I know, right? Like, what are you really going to do to me? Now, obviously, we want to be compliant as much as possible. And they always say they're here to help us. And typically, they do not take fiscal action and fiscally penalize us unless our free and reduced numbers are not accurate. So I don't know.
So it's on good faith. It's on good faith that we at Geneva Schools are
and if we
trying to meet the
don't
target.
do it,
Okay.
and I think somewhere, I don't know if it was on here or someplace else I read, said that if you something about you didn't have to raise more than 10 cents. So obviously, the 331 is very high, but they also understand that if we raised it to $3.31, our participation would go away.
Is there a cost of living consideration at all? I mean, is it 331 in Cleveland and Geneva?
This is a federal state mandate.
So California and Ohio are the
California,
same.
I mean,
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
yeah.
And Mrs. Jones, you said you're asking whether you should be able to increase the lunch price by 10%, or 10
10
cents.
cents.
10 cents.
Yes.
But you're not raising breakfast, that's staying the same, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, our breakfast participation isn't really that high for paid students. Most of our breakfast participation is free and reduced students. So I think raising, they don't really give us a target price for breakfast. So as long as they're not giving me a target price, I'm not gonna
Fair enough.
go there.
Fair
So-
enough.
So in your letter, you show, oh, it's just great, never mind. So the request is a 10% to take the
10
cents.
lunch,
10 cents.
10 cents to take the lunch at K-5 from 280 to 290,
Yes,
and 10 cents to take the lunch at 612 from 305 to 315.
correct.
And do we need to make a motion for that and vote on that?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make the motion. that
I'll
we-
second.
I'm sorry, I have one more question. So when the families apply for assistance, then is taking the old application was on the old rate. What if I could afford the old rate, but now I can't afford the new rate?
Then you fill out a new application.
Okay.
The eligibility guidelines change every year. So
Okay.
you were talking about cost of living, that does increase. So they might say a family of two, 2 years ago, a family of two, in order to qualify, might have needed 20,000 or something. But now a family of two might need, 25,000. I'm not,
Sure.
So to start off the school year, everyone will have whatever we have on file for them, even going back to the 1920 school year.
Right, again though, so what happens to Bobby Jr. when mom had 20 cents last year for his reduced lunch, but now she doesn't have 30 cents for this year?
Well, if she doesn't have 30 cents for this year, then possibly she would qualify for the free and reduced, so she would just fill out a new application.
Okay.
So,
So we need roll call on that motion to increase lunch prices by 10 cents.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Jones.
Thank you, Mrs. Jones.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So last month, we talked for quite some time about Smolin and the lack of information that was passed back to us in the prior 6 months. We left that meeting knowing that Smolin was to get us their information no later than July 1st. That did come in on July 1st. All of the board members have been given that information, and I thought that we needed to circle back around for this discussion because in addition to receiving all of the information from Smolin, we have all toured the Pairings building, and some of us have toured the house on the hill, and we have looked at all of the documentation that's been given to us. So I wanted to open up a discussion on this whole board office location. If somebody would like to begin.
Yeah, I can dive in. Okay, so here's my overall question. And I spoke to Mr. Arndt about it briefly. Some of these prices just seem ridiculous. For example, $26,000 for appliances. We don't need a full professional kitchen at the board office. We need a fridge and a microwave, am I right? So can we go through and take back to them, oh, can we, what's the word for that? Bring back a response that says, we don't want to spend $26,000 on appliances, we only want to spend $2,000 on appliances. And go through each item like that and try to negotiate with them a lower cost.
Well, this is budget numbers. This isn't an estimate. Smolin provided us budget numbers of what we may be spending. So
What's the difference?
they're giving you a baseline of what it may cost. They're not saying this is what it's gonna cost.
Right, so then we can go back and say,
Well,
we don't want to spend that much on that item.
Well, sure, if you want to go through every single line item at every single location that they presented, but I mean, overall, to build new with these budget numbers, we're over $2 million on every single one of them. The house is upwards of $3 million. Granted, they did put 15% contingency on it, but any one of these that you look at, your minimum of a year, probably 2, to have any of this come to fruition. JCI is willing to modify turnkey pairings for $9.89 for what we need and have us in it by next school year.
I'm saying if we pare down this itemized, then it can get closer to the cost of pairings for new construction. Because I would still prefer to be on campus. That's just my preference for.
Well, that was my preference, but looking at these numbers and looking at the timeline and looking at supply chain, I don't see it.
All right.
All right, I'll chime in. So I will say that my feeling in looking at these two buildings, the house on the hill and pairings, was that I don't think it's feasible to use the house on the hill. I think that needs to not be one of our choices anymore, and that's very unfortunate. I will say that no one on this board made the decision to purchase that house on the hill. I don't know what the justification was at the time for why they purchased it. I don't know what their plans were when they purchased it. I can't speak to any of that. And all I know is at this point, it was an option for us to look at, and in my personal opinion, I don't believe it's an option that we can move forward with. My preference would have been to add on to the media center. What I noticed, and it was pointed out to me by somebody else, but when I went back and I looked at it, what I noticed was we had requested them to actually put an addition on the media center. And the way that the renderings are drawn, they are not attached to the building. So it makes me question why on some of the costs they talk about, I'm not going to be able to find it right now when I want to, but modifications for a new entrance at the storage room. And then there was modifications for a new entrance at the, I don't know, what other place on the other side of the library. So I don't know if the rendering is just incorrect and they understood that we wanted it added on. I don't know that, but that is a question, and I think in discussion with Dr. Treharn, she noticed that too and wonders if maybe that's why those prices are so high. Because to me, an addition onto the media center shouldn't be $2 million.
Yeah.
That's just too high.
I think we all agree on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and so, you know, we talk about budget numbers versus what we actually want to spend. So this budget comes through and we say, okay, we want to add on to the media center. The budget is $2 million, and we could probably pare it down, to your point, Mrs. Dixon. You know, we say, well, we don't need to spend that much money on appliances, but how much are we going to be able to pare that? Are we really going to be able to take $1 million off that price? I don't know that.
think if we can take $25,000 off each item, yes. I mean, and that's just the one that I clung to because my husband worked in appliances for years and years, and to spend $26,000 on appliances is to get the top of the line industrial situation. And so I just use that one as an example of something that I am familiar with. But if we
Where do
If
you
we
see-
knock down,
What page is that
Each
on?
of these
I don't know.
budgets has 5,000 for
The appliances all say $5,000. None of them say 26,000.
okay, well, I can't remember where I saw that, but,
It's the painting that's 26,000 below the appliance line.
okay, well, I may have skipped
For one
lines, that's
building.
not the point. My point isn't that. My point is that we could knock $1 million off, possibly, if we do go through each item and say, we want you to budget this amount instead of this amount for that.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe we can knock the $1 million off. I can't say it with 100% certainty. I'm not feeling like that would be the case, but maybe. The other thing that I will say is that I actually was pretty impressed with the rendering for pairings and how they laid it out for us. When I walked through the building, I can kind of see the plan that they had, and I think that the building itself and the way they laid it out was very conducive for the business that we need to conduct there and for the people that we need to house there.
Where, at the Pairings Building?
Yeah, at pairings, yeah.
Can
I liked it.
I'm sorry, can we take 1 second and rename these what we call them? Northeast End and stuff is what they have them labeled. Can we rename them so we're all talking about the same one?
Okay, so you're going back to the Smolin plans?
Yes, so Northeast End is
A freestanding building.
freestanding building.
At the high school,
Right?
on the northeast end of the
A
property.
whole new separate building.
Yeah.
All right. And then north side of the media center, I know which one that is. South side of the media center I got. House addition, that's the house
On the hill.
on the hill.
And the addition is actually built out from where the basement is, if I understand all of the renderings correctly.
Okay. And then where's pairings in this list?
Pairings isn't in this list.
Pairings isn't from
It's
Smolin.
separate.
Pairings is not.
Pairings
from
is
Smolin.
JCI.
Yes.
Which is a whole separate.
Right.
This is their rendering there that was distributed to the
Yep.
board. And you were presented the price on that at the last meeting. The turnkey was now $989,000.
Right.
Build-to-suit agreement.
I just want to be able to do apples to apples. I'm sorry, Mrs. Metzler, I'm sorry I interrupted.
That's okay. A couple of the questions, though, that I have about pairings, and they kind of come from me having conversations with other people, is I'm not 100% certain what that turnkey price includes, because when it talks about land to be subdivided with an entrance on Eagle Street, are we not getting that big plot of land out in front of the building?
No.
No, you're getting nothing but that building.
You're getting
And-
the building and some driveway.
Madam President, you have no control over what goes in that lot, that big lot. And you have no control when they rehab the house in front and it turns into a rental. So then you're gonna have a rental there, and then you have a house next door with a very thin residential fence, where when you're sitting in your office working in the current parents' building, you're gonna get all that summertime noise. The school board doesn't take, the administrative office doesn't take off all summer long. You get just that building and a parking lot.
Okay.
And you have no say over what that field develops into.
Okay.
Yeah, which is why I think we all agree that on our campus would be a better location than just in the middle of town anywhere. I mean, if we're gonna do that, there's empty office buildings in the strip malls. We can just rent part of the strip mall if we're just gonna go in town somewhere. We should be with the schools.
Okay, so the other last thing that I'll say, and then anybody that hasn't spoken, feel free to speak. The last thing I'll say was I was asked about how I felt after I toured the buildings, and my response was, I don't feel like I have all of the information. Because if I were to do this on my own, for myself personally, I wouldn't be just working with one engineer. I would have at least another engineer to compare prices with. Pairings is pairings, you know, this is what it is. We're not gonna change this much, the price is what it is. I am disappointed that the field doesn't come with it, so I might reconsider how happy I was with that, although like I said, I like the building. But I don't feel like I have as much information as I would want if I were personally doing this for myself. And I realize, we talked about it in our last meeting, about if we wanted to find another engineer, Smolin is our engineer of record, there's a process that we have to go through that is time consuming to get estimates from another engineer. If we wanted to check these prices, I think it sounds like we all think that the prices Smolin gave us are inflated and what we don't want to spend, but if we don't want to spend the money that Smolin is saying we need to spend or budget, and we aren't happy with the location of pairings and what we would get for our money, then we need another engineer.
But, Madam President, I think we need to, Mrs. Ortiz brought up a very good point. These are just forecasted numbers that Smolin provided to us. This is not from a contractor giving us an estimate on a proposed bill because we didn't give them what we actually wanted. This is Smolin just come up with this, they pulled, they went into their database, they pulled, okay, they're gonna need this, and this. They punched the numbers in at the last minute. We know that because we had to ask for 6 months to get it. They provided it at the 11th hour, and they gave it to us just like that. So I would like to see something from someone else.
Now we're back to where we were last month about that it'll be another year added on to getting the project done, right? If we try to find another engineer, that adds a year onto the work. My choice would be to negotiate with Smolin and get what we want for a better price.
But they're not, these are budget numbers. These aren't, they wouldn't be the contractor. These are.
They don't build.
They don't build.
Okay, so Mr.
So who do we talk to about getting the price down?
So, Mr. Lillie, explain to us then, say we want to go with an addition to the north side of the media center, and we've accepted Smolin's rendering. What happens next?
Well, you're not accepting Smolin's rendering. What you're doing is you're using what Smolin gave you, and I hope you all had the opportunity to read their email that these accompanied, which, you know, he explains a number of things, including a caution that these numbers are continuing to increase, and they have no idea at this point when they stop increasing. But if you decided to go with one of the options that Smolin has presented you, you would then proceed to first enter into a contract with Smolin to go through the design development, the schematic design phase, the bid document phase, everything. A POR was program of requirements is what you actually usually begin with, but we gave Smolin the same thing that we gave JCI and Renew Partners, basically an idea of what offices we needed, how many, what size, and so on. We gave them the POR that BSHM Architects had provided for the district back in 2008, and took some things off that no longer applied. But if you decided to go with one of these options, you would enter into a contract with them for the design services. They would design the project, and again, you would have input and say if you wanted changes and so on. When those documents are all finalized, you go out to bid. Whether it's just a general contractor with the different subs underneath them for this size building, unlike our school buildings where we bid individual packages for the GC, for plumbing, for HVAC, and so on. In this, it would probably be one GC with any different packages under them. And the bids that are submitted, you choose the lowest, most responsible bidder, that would then establish what you're going to pay
So
for
then
that
what's the point
construction.
of them sending us all those numbers?
Because you requested to get an idea of what the cost might be. And so they're giving you an idea. And I thought you got that so you could compare it to what Pairings is showing you. And I have no doubt, and I've said this before at each of the meetings this has been discussed, these scenarios, whether they're designed by another engineer or not, they're all going to be much more costly than this. You're not going to get a building built on this site, new,
For the same price.
anywhere close to what this turnkey approach is going
Well,
to
that's
be.
because you get what you pay for sometimes. If you want a new building, you have to pay for a new building.
But it's the construction, the bids that are going to establish the price.
Okay.
But the engineer has to give an engineer's estimate on any construction project for schools. You have to have that, what their best guess or assumption is going to be as to what the price. And when you accept those bids, they can't come in any higher than 10% of that estimate, or you have to reject those bids and start over again. So and this happened when we went out to bid for Austinburg and Cork. The first bids that came in were more than 10% over the architect's estimate. So those bids had to be rejected. We had to go through some adjustments in the design. They had to apply another estimate, and then we accepted a second round of bids. Those came in within 10% of the estimate, so we're able to proceed with the construction. Same thing could happen with this. If prices continue to increase and they base it on what the prices are now, we go out to bid and it comes in higher. I don't know that, I mean, obviously it could come in lower, but in the current environment, I don't find that likely.
I will say to Mrs. Metzler's point earlier, in regards specifically to site location 3 and 4, or, I'm sorry, 2 and 3, I'm not 100% convinced that those are accurate numbers. I did reach out to them for clarification and did not hear back, because when you look at the drawings of those two, they have them as freestanding buildings, and they're not attached.
So you think that brings the price down?
No, I think it brings the price up.
Oh, no. If they're correct, the price comes down. If they're attached.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I also think that the square footage that was proposed is higher than what we were looking at in square footage at pairings. I mean, they're talking a building of 6479. Seems a little large. So if we had a smaller building that we were going to have drawn up attached to another building, maybe we would be reducing that price. But I guess I feel like, Mr. Lillie, when you explain that Smolin would be designing what we say we want them to design, and then we go out to bid, I mean, okay, their budgetary estimates that they've given us are high, we all acknowledge that. Maybe I don't feel so compelled to get a second opinion if at the end of the day, we're putting this building out to bid and we're going to get however many bidders coming back with those prices. I mean, so now I don't feel as compelled on a second engineer because they're not really the ones doing the work, telling us it's going to cost this much. It's
Yeah,
an
that was
estimate.
my initial question.
Yeah.
And thank you for phrasing it in a way that, what the next steps are. That was my initial question. Why,
Right.
do we just accept this
Right.
$2.8 million and write them a check? I mean, no, that can't be the way it works. And so I wanted to know, yeah. And so I do think that the cost will come down from what their budgetary estimate is once we go through all these steps. And so I still think that's the best option. Can we go through the drawings and tell me which one is which?
Yeah.
So, they all say new board office planning, but they're all drawings of different things. So, can someone explain this to me? I don't understand this.
I was going through it earlier myself and trying to label
Yeah,
them.
Well, if you take your estimate for site location 1, northeast end,
Okay.
site plan, in the lower left-hand corner, there is a plan that shows a bigger parking lot and the building, and in the lower left-hand corner says site plan scheme number 1. That goes with site location number 1. That is this drawing right here.
That's the freestanding building on the northeast corner, or,
This
yeah,
one?
on the northeast end.
Yes.
I don't see what you're seeing.
Down in the lower left-hand corner, right
Underneath
here.
the red.
Oh.
Site plan
Mr.
scheme
Markijon, if
number
I had
1.
more light, I'd be able to see it better. I literally can't read that. Look how in heaven's light.
This? You guys are following.
Yeah, it's not.
Wow.
It's the copy. Here's mine. Look. You can see much better. Site plan scheme.
Oh, yeah.
It's the way it copied.
Okay. All right, so this site plan scheme 1 is site location 1.
Number 1.
Northeast end freestanding building.
Yep.
Then if you take your estimate for site location number 2,
I'm
north.
sorry, wait, please. So this is the freestanding, okay. All right, now, site location 2.
Site location number 2, and if you look at the picture that shows an addition, and it shows the existing high school building to the right, the media center below, this would be the north side of the media center.
Okay. So this is number 2.
Attach that to site location number 2.
And you'll notice that what I was saying and Dr. Treharn was saying is that building is not attached at all to the existing high school building in the drawing.
Right, so
Yeah.
we just think that's a mistake, that they misunderstood us, and we give them a common wall, right?
Yeah.
We request a common wall, okay.
Is that what you requested when it went to Smolin?
In addition to the media center is attached in the way I would define it.
That was my assumption. But that could be, I don't know, construction. So what about these?
Then you take site location number 3.
Yeah,
If it's legible on your copy, down in the lower left-hand corner, it says site plan scheme number 3, but in this one, again, the existing high school
I
building
can't
is
read mine.
to
What does
the
it look
right.
like? This one?
The existing high school's to the right, the media center is now above this building.
yes. And then
So that would go
4
with site
I have,
location
which
number
is-
3.
Okay,
Then the addition to the house had basically 1, 2, 3, 4 different schematics that go with it. One
oh, okay.
showing the basic design, one showing the new building below, one showing it with the parking lot, and another showing a bigger picture in relation to the high school.
Okay. I think that was part of it. I couldn't read that little thing, so I didn't know which drawing was which. Thank you for clarifying that for me. And this indoor is all of them, right?
Yeah, same basic design.
All of the new. I got it. Thank you. Look at me. She can be taught.
Mr. Arndt, are you still in favor of getting another engineer, even after this discussion about what our next steps would be in going out to bid? Are you,
If you don't want to go out to another engineer and you want to take one of these things and go for it, you have to figure out which one you want. Do you want to go with the addition here, making sure that it's connected? Are you happy with, or is anybody even comfortable with the house? It looks to me that it's a 2-story building, which second floor is cheaper space than first floor. You put the whole thing on the first floor and you don't need elevators, so that helps out with the ADA stuff. I think connecting to an existing building here is a better option than going downtown. You're adding another piece of inventory to school property. We have enough property right here, and we certainly have enough room to add on to the high school.
Ms. Fisher?
Before you go out and ask for a bid from a company, you have to be comfortable with what exactly you want.
Ms. Fisher, do you have anything that you'd like to weigh in with?
Well, I just tend to disagree with Mr. Arndt. I kind of like the idea of starting with something that's appears to be relatively easily convertible to our needs, that's already there, that's real close to what we're, where we're located now. It's not like people aren't going to be able to find us. We've lived with our neighbors over there for however many years, which wasn't always an ideal situation, but we are a little bit more removed from them. We're at the pairings office and the other. I built a house, I didn't build one, but we had a house built from scratch. And
I built a house.
I felt like I built it. It can be a real drain emotionally, financially, and in other ways. And to have something to start with and do a refurbishment it appeals to me more.
Okay.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, one more schematic question. So orient me, it says existing high school building, but orient me to the 3 different locations of what we consider the addition, which is numbers 2, 3, and 4. Those would be the addition onto the media center?
No, just 2 and 3.
What's
4 is an addition to the
house.
house on the hill.
Oh. Okay.
And according to the Smolin's estimate, that is the highest cost option.
Yeah. Okay. So the difference in 2 and 3 is,
North side,
is it
south
up here
side.
or down here? North side or south side?
To the window side of the media center?
North towards the tracks, south towards 84.
North of the windows, the media center, the window wall.
Which is which?
Number 2, is the north side of the media center. Number 3 is the south side of the media center. If you look at the one that has the parking lot, showing a parking lot in the upper right-hand corner behind the existing high school building, that's the back parking lot. That is that right there. That is number 2, and that is on the north side.
Okay. Thank you.
So do we have any kind of consensus on the house on the hill?
That's your preference, right?
Storage.
The house?
A consensus for the house on the hill?
That's what you want to do, renovate that one or no?
No.
You want to renovate pairings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The,
I think the house is a no, right?
Kevin, as far as assistance, there's different things with rehab dollars and new construction. Is that with schools, like when we built new schools, there was other things involved than just what was in our account to build the schools. There was
State money.
was there state help or different
We built
bonds
our
and
new
stuff?
schools with Ohio School Facilities Commission money.
Okay, so
That money built all the schools except this one, which
but we had to
was-
do that because we could not use any of that type of dollars to rehab a school, one of our older schools, meaning we had to build a new middle school because none of those dollars that we got from the state could be used on rehab dollars.
Well, it was all according to the plan that the state approved. So the first plan that was approved had an additional elementary school and had a renovation of the middle school. When we entered into the expedited local partnership program, passed the bond issue and built this high school as the discrete portion of our project. By the time our number came up with the state for the state funds to come our way, that was 2007, and by then the state changed the plan and said now it didn't make sense, the cost, if they looked at the cost of renovation being 2/3 of what the cost would be to build new, and they said build new. So that's what they said then. Now you need to build a new middle school, and because our enrollment had decreased, cut us from 4 elementaries to 3. So in the end, all the money that the state gave, yes, had to be used for new construction per the plan that they approved, and could not be used for renovation. But initially, the middle school was going to be renovated by the first plan they approved. So I mean, this money, this is all local money. This is what we have already in a capital fund that could be used for this. I don't know that there'd be any grants
There's no
available
assistance
to
at all. It's what's in, we have.
And there's no state funding coming our way to build anything other than the classroom facilities assistance program.
So, House on the Hill?
No.
No.
No, okay. All right, so that's out of the question. That's one thing down. So I think we do have another opportunity to speak about this later. And is there anything more that we need to say right now about our options?
Is there any possibility of purchasing that extra land by pairings? Is that for sale?
I mean, I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure we could ask the question.
I
They
mean,
should be
you
able to
know,
give us
if
an
that's
answer.
The whole corner?
Yeah.
Well, if that's a problem, I mean, just see if it's for sale.
Are we talking about
Maybe
the
we
property where GE used to stand? That field?
Yeah. Yeah.
What happened to it when GE came down?
That property was first sold to the city, and they at the time had the idea that they were going to build this large, small business incubator, wine and culinary center.
Right, okay.
Before they could raise the funds for that facility, they petitioned the board to purchase the barn and the board office. So that was sold to them, and we became renters in our board office. And they worked through CIC to build what they called windows on pairings. Their big plan was for that corner to contain pairings, and this was windows on pairings when they added and renovated the barn. That didn't last very long. A couple years, went defunct, picked up by the Port Authority, and then Renew Partners purchased that at a steal from the Port Authority. Port Authority picked it up by auction.
So who owns it now?
Renew Partners. Renew Partners owns all of that.
Okay.
Who does?
The field?
Renew Partners,
The field as well?
everything,
JCI owns
the
it.
whole corner.
Renew
Renew
Partners
Partners.
and JCI. They work together, but Renew Partners owns it. JCI would be doing the work.
There.
So if we renovate that building, do we continue to rent from them? I think
No,
that's.
we would, it's turnkey
No, this is
purchase.
turnkey, is for purchase of the renovated,
Oh,
the addition
yeah,
to
okay.
pairings and the renovation to make it a board office and the necessary parking areas and entranceway that we need.
Okay.
And that would be owned by the board. I mean, if you wanted to build it and rent it, I'm sure they would work that out too, but we thought the board wanted to purchase the site instead
No,
of
I don't want to
continuing
rent. I hate renting.
Yeah.
Renting is stupid.
What more do we need to say right now? Because I think, I mean, we still have a lot of questions here, but I think we've eliminated one of the options. And Mr. Arndt, I mean, I guess I'll ask because I wasn't sure I heard your answer. Do you still think we need another engineer to provide us with a rendering and a budgetary estimate?
All the information that I can get indicates that Smolin is the highest on paper of anyone around here. I don't know them. I don't know anybody in them. I know that they are high. And that comes from people that do work, a lot of work.
High cost, you mean, Mr. Arndt? High in price, you mean, yeah?
High on estimates.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not, I think these are absurd.
Yeah.
The numbers. I don't think the work or the detail or what they have in here, some of the renderings are wrong when we ask for something that's attached to a building. How can they provide us with pictures where it's not even attached to the building? If we provided them with what we wanted, why do they provide us with something that we didn't ask for? meaning a standalone addition onto the high school when it's not attached to the high school. It's got sidewalks in between it. So as far as I'm concerned, this isn't what we really asked for.
So you do think we should find another engineer who will give us closer to what we asked for?
Just need to throw out there, if you recall, Smolin has done work for the board. Smolin designed the addition for the bus garage maintenance building at Curzon. We went through the basically qualification-based process to choose. They weren't our first pick, CT Consultants were, but we could negotiate a price. The board at the time said they were wanting way too much money to design this. As I informed the board, I believe it was like $150,000. So in that process, when you go to pick somebody to use for design services, you rank your choices, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you can't negotiate with your first choice, then you go to the second choice. The board moved to second choice of Smolin. We were able to negotiate a design services contract with Smolin for $59,000, much less than CT Consultants. So, I mean, they weren't higher there. They came in under the estimate, or the building came in slightly under the estimate, but very close to it. Then the second thing we did was when we had to repair the smoke vent doors here in the auditorium. Had a problem that they were stuck. We had to hire design services, and since they were our engineer of record, we used them to design the project. That project was done and was successful. So we've used them, and I mean, it's not like their estimates there were high. Yeah, these estimates that they've given are high, but that could be because of the current construction environment and the cost of building materials.
Or because there's the pairings in the deal.
I don't know. I mean, if they know pairings is in the deal and what they're offering, they didn't do themselves any favors in my mind with these prices, because in my mind, the best and most economical is the turnkey approach at $989,000. You're not going to build on this site, even if you build off the media center and don't have to do the wall, if they can do that and how they do that, you're not going to get the price anywhere close to what the offer is for renovating pairings. Now, I've said that at every meeting.
Well, I believe the taxpayers, the taxpayers already took $200 out of the general fund and bought that piece of property from the schools. They gave it to the CIC. The CIC mortgaged it for $247 to a pairings board. 3 iterations of a pairings board, and they dissolved. There's never an audit done. Between Key Bank, Port Authority, 501, and personal citizens here in the city, they put $650,000 in the building. The building's now gutted. They bought it at auction for less than $300,000 for the taxes. And now they want to sell it to the school for $1 million.
Yeah.
Already add the $200,000 that was in there, and then you're going to have change orders in there on the construction, and that money comes from the taxpayers. Is that something that we want to do?
Well, I guess I'm only asking the question because once Mr. Lillie went through the process, we can say, I was of the opinion that I wanted another engineer as well. But once Mr. Lillie walks us through the process of saying, you know, we're going to contract with Smolin for design services, they'll design it whatever we want, wherever we want. And in the end, the cost is going to come from the bids that we go out for and the people that place those bids. So Smolin's numbers, again, we've used this word, you know, are for budget, but at the end of the day, we're not held to those numbers. We're going to be held to the bidders that bid the jobs.
And we decide what we pay for. When they say $20,000 for a water fountain, we tell them we don't need that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But I think, I mean, again, we have another opportunity later to speak about this, but I think that if we can come to some kind of a consensus on which direction that we want to go in, whether that's going to be the majority of the board being in favor of looking at pairings more seriously, or the majority of the board being in favor of working with one of Smollen's renderings. We kind of need to know that direction. And I honestly don't want to go another month without making a decision like
Me either.
that.
Can we do it on consensus, or do we have to actually vote? Guess that's a procedural question.
Well,
Which direction to go to?
And I do think we have an opportunity, like I said, later to discuss this a little bit more at length.
But then we're gonna have to wait another month to vote on it.
I don't disagree with anything that Mr. Arndt said about costs and how all of that went down with the pairings property. But we weren't the ones sitting here when that happened. It just happened. Yes, the people that own it now bought it at a steal because they had the money to buy it at a steal. Anybody that had that kind of cash when it was up for sale could have bought it. They did. We're not going to build any of these in the time frame that we're going to move into this building. So although none of this is easy or simple or perfect
Or cheap.
or cheap, none of it's cheap. I believe logic dictates if you take all of the historical nastiness out of this property, of what's went down with it failing and then being bought at auction and so on and so forth. Common sense says that it's less than $1 million and everything else that they're proposing is over $1.5 million plus contingencies, and that's just with their budget numbers. And they said in their email that those prices may only just continue to go up.
They have no way of knowing that, though.
But
Gas
you have
is
no
coming
way
down.
of knowing they're not.
I don't.
But
I mean,
when I met with the people for this building, they assured me if we had a decision tonight, we would be in this building by next school year. We could be moving in this time next year. And we could design it with the finishes that we want.
And do we know that that's not true for the new construction?
You really think it is?
I have no idea how long it takes.
Well, you don't even have
My
it
parents built a
designed
house
yet.
in a year.
You have to
How long
go
did they
through
build
the
it up?
design services. I mean, you're at a minimum. I mean, it took 6 months to even get budget numbers. You think we're gonna get something sooner for them to actually design it and get us a contractor, and then that contractor get what they need to build it?
No, I have no idea.
I mean, people waited a year to get a generator.
When,
Many people waited a year to get a generator.
when I went to look at pairings with Mrs. Metzler and Dr. Treharn, we stood there in a portion of the building with their proposed schematic for the floor plan and went through well, what if you took this and made this the conference room, and you took the conference room and made that into 3 offices, and you moved this here, and you took the utilities, meaning the fax machines and the copiers, and you moved them over there closer to the desks of the people that use it. And we basically sat there and trashed their whole floor plan.
And they moved it all.
And they loved it. And they said, sure, we can do that, we can do that. And they were just so into making us happy.
Accommodating.
They really were. They said they had their own, he had his own suggestions about an entryway. Do we have a foyer? Do we have somebody sitting at the entryway? Or do we just have a pass-through where people walk into a different room? I mean, he had a lot of ideas, he had a lot of suggestions, and he was extremely accommodating. And he was on time. He was there when we got there, so.
And you made the comment about change orders. I didn't get the impression that we would be seeing change orders. Am I under a misconception that we would be seeing change orders? I didn't get that feeling from them that we would be seeing change orders. I got the feeling that our price is $9.89 and it's gonna be billed to what we want.
But that's the turnkey price on here, and that's what turnkey means, that they're going to build this. But it all, again, if the designs change, and this is from June 22nd, 2022. It's now almost been a month, so I don't know if this price is still going to prevail.
But gas is going down.
Gas is going down, but a lot of other things are going up.
in Madison.
If the same thing, Kurt Gowans from Smolin put a lot of, Kurt Gowans from Smolin put a lot of information in that email to explain his price.
They're threatening.
Renew Partners, or JCI, said, time is not on our side with respect to repricing this project. Labor, steel, asphalt, metals, and drywall are all up since their last LOI. Additionally, freight to land supplies and materials to the job site also have increased. This option continues to be significantly less expensive than constructing an entirely new building. Additionally, we still feel strongly that this proposal provides significant value to the schools. So they're both saying that prices could continue to go up.
I guess I could be more amenable to it if it was the whole corner.
I won't disagree with you there, because when I found out it wasn't the corner, I was not happy about that. But to Ms. Fisher's point, maybe we go back to them and we ask them, you know,
How much for the corner?
is this for sale? How much is it? You know, I mean, we could do that.
What are we gonna do with the corner lot? We already have a house we can't do anything with.
Okay. I mean,
Or
I
even a
understand your
section
point.
of it, even a section to broaden the
That's not a bad question, though, Mrs. Ortiz. What do we want that for?
Just so nobody else can build there? Nobody's built there in how many years?
Right, I know, right? I
Okay,
don't think
so-
there's a big rush on building on that land.
Okay,
collect a
so,
lot in parking.
so do we
on
want a
Jamboree.
motion right now to move forward with any of these options? Do we
I'm
want
sorry, say that again, please.
Do we want a motion to move forward with any of these options right now? Do we want to wait until we have a little bit of a chance to discuss this a little bit later on in the meeting and then potentially take action when we return from executive session? That is an option.
I would like that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's duke it out and then come back and vote on it.
Okay. Does anyone need to say anything more right now? Okay. Thank you to all of you for expressing your opinions. The next area, Dr. Treharn, existing policies.
Yes, so the following existing policies are enclosed for your review. These policies are annually reviewed, predominantly for our Title I program. They have to be annually reviewed by the board. There were no changes to the policies that you received, but it's sort of a matter of compliance.
That was my question. Thank you, Dr. Treharn. I'm like, why am I reading these when there's no yellow?
So is this the first read, or is this for a motion tonight?
It's for your review.
For our review?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, the superintendent recommends approval of the attached agreement and service contract between the Ashtabula County ESC and the Geneva Area City School District for the DD satellites and building bridges for the 22-23 school year.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion?
Are these just routine from prior year and they're just going to the next year? Are there changes?
So these are for our students that attend building bridges at the ESC, as well as for our DD units that we house here.
And what's different about these from last year to this year?
I don't know that the numbers specifically changed. I don't know if Mrs. Porcello knows that off the top of her head, but I mean, we certainly can have more students in one or the other programs. I don't know if you know that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but recall that while the costs of running these programs would go up each year, currently, we are not directly paying for any of the services because the entire cost is covered by the levy. to fund the DD and the state funding that flows through the DD to the ESC and is credited on our behalf. So when we first took this over, we had to pay. Then when the state money came, that reduced how much we paid. And now with the levy, we aren't paying anything currently.
Okay,
And that
so,
was 5-year levy?
5-year levy.
5-year levy.
okay, so that covers the building bridges service contract dollars.
DD satellite, that's more the DD satellite and the building bridges. The building bridges, as Mrs. Porcello said, is on here because we now have a student attending there. We took over former building bridges units from the ESC and put our own teachers and aides in those units in our buildings when we made cuts in order to keep from having to cut 4 teachers.
Okay,
But this is one student that apparently can't fit into our units and is now at the ESC in a building bridges unit.
well, my question is more for the DD satellite agreement where there is a line about what the ESC is going to pay us per unit in rent. And I would like to know, does that ever change?
Does that ever change? Not right now. There is a committee of superintendents and treasurers that meet and decide how the levy money is going to be spent. We have added things, so they are covering more each year. So the rent was new for 21-22, that they are paying us rent for the space. They never paid before.
Okay.
The DD never paid before. We have had DD satellites for a long, long time, and we just began receiving rent
Okay.
because the levy is sufficient to cover that last year.
Okay.
They also began picking up part of the transportation reimbursement for getting these students to the ESC or to the DD units.
Okay.
So their levy passage took line items off our budget,
Right. Took expenses off
expenses off.
what
Yeah,
we had to pay on purchase services.
good, okay. Another good reason to vote for their levies. Just saying.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes,
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
The superintendent recommends approval to renew the membership with the Ohio Schools Council.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a quick question. What does this get us? Why do we pay this?
Better pricing on certain things.
Such as what, like,
We
Teaching materials
have
or-
used the Ohio Schools Council to currently purchase both our electric and our gas, natural gas, saving us money from what we did before. So they have programs available through the Ohio Schools Council that over 300 districts in northern Ohio take advantage of. We get a hotel discount on stays down in Columbus at the Hyatt and one other hotel, and we get discounts when we go down for professional development. They operate a cooperative purchasing compact that these districts take advantage so that we can get group pricing on things that we buy through them.
okay, good.
And they have a number of other different programs that we can choose to take advantage of or not.
And paying the membership gives us all those
Right.
perks. Okay, thank you.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes,
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Okay, we need to talk about a delegate and an alternate to represent our school board at the annual business meeting at the Ohio School Boards Association on November 14th. Traditionally, I believe that this representative to the annual business meeting is the legislative liaison.
oh. I was just gonna check if I'm available. No.
But also, we can discuss, if any of our board members would like to attend the Capitol Conference, those dates,
They're November 13th through the 15th.
yeah.
And it's not a full 3 days, it's kind of like a 2.5 day.
So they overlap, so the
The business meeting is
business
held.
meeting is during the Capitol Conference?
Yes. Yes.
So I can either go to all of it or just that piece. Is that what you mean?
You'll probably go to all of it.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean,
if
I
you really
might be
wanted to go
one of the
down
people
for
who goes
just
to all
one
of
day,
it,
you could.
or just the person who goes to that one piece.
You would just be that one person from our board that goes to that one meeting, representing our
Yes.
board at that meeting.
Well, when you register for the Capitol Conference, I think there's some different packages. You either register for the entire conference, or you
Correct.
can, if you wish, rester for one day.
Okay.
That's what I was
And-
saying.
and
You don't
this-
have to go down all
Can
3
I go to
days if
Capitol?
you can't. That's what I was saying. What Mr. Lillie said is you don't have to go down for all 3 days of the conference if you can't. Let's say you have a conflict on the 15th and you only want to go the 13th and the 14th, then you could just go down for those 2 days. Or one day if you just want to go down the 14th.
Okay.
It's well worth it.
Oh, I want to go. That's why I'm asking, because I want to go to all 3 days or whatever.
Okay, so we would nominate you as our delegate for the business meeting,
Okay.
and we would need an alternate for the, well, for,
If
who
the
else would like
delegate
to-
is unable to attend, we have to have an alternate designated to take their place to attend and vote at the meeting.
Yeah, I think Mrs. Metzler should attend. Since,
Yes, I will be attending.
yes,
So do we
I-
need a motion?
So we need a motion and a
So
second.
I move that Marty be our delegate and Amber be our alternate.
And I'll second.
And we'll just need to have some discussion about who else would like to attend Capitol Conference and get them registered, because Dr. Treharn has said that those reservations open up on July 25th.
And
We
they
don't do that right now?
fill quickly.
Can we do that right now? I want to go.
You're set as the
3
delegate.
people?
No, for all 3 days.
Yeah, probably, yeah. I want to go all 3 days.
Are you going, Amber, regardless?
no.
Ms. Fisher?
Is it Thanksgiving? Do I get out of hosting Thanksgiving?
Either one of you?
What's the date?
November 13th, 14th, and 15th.
If I change my mind, can I tell you tomorrow? Pretty sure I'm a no, but
Which one did Marty just become the primary in?
the same one,
For the business meeting?
just for the business
Okay.
meeting.
Okay.
It's 10 o'clock.
All right, any further discussion? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes,
The treasurer recommends that a student activity account be established for the class of 2029.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
What is this for?
Every year, there becomes a new class at the middle school. That's when they start keeping a class fund, fundraising, building towards the junior year when they host the junior, senior dance or prom, and their senior year when they graduate. So
Right.
we have to establish that fund.
Got it.
Those kids in now.
Thank you.
Sixth.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
yes,
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes. The superintendent recommends approval of the enclosed revisions to the administrator's contract guidelines effective July 1, 2022.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
yes,
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
The superintendent recommends administrative change of contracts effective July 1, 2022 to be paid according to the adopted administrator's contract guidelines.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Sorry.
Ms. Fisher?
yes,
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Dr. Treharn, go ahead.
Well, of course, I wanted to thank all of our administrators who came this evening, but in particular, just to recognize that Mr. Mark Mollahan, who was our former assistant middle school principal, will be moving into the principal position at the middle school, and Mr. Dave Riley, who was formerly the middle school principal, will be moving into the assistant superintendent position.
Congrats. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The superintendent recommends the following personnel actions for the 22-23 contract year.
Move.
Oh, excuse me. That should be for the 21-22 contract year. The next item is for 22-23.
Okay.
So please note that correction.
Does it need amended, or just,
If you would move for that amended item.
I move for the amended item?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
The superintendent recommends the following personnel actions for the 22-23 contract year.
Move.
Second.
Any discussion?
So I would like to thank Sean, who, if you wouldn't mind standing for a moment, he is going to be our new high school math teacher. Thank him for his patience in staying here this lengthy evening. And just to give you a little bit of background about him, again, he will be our new high school math teacher. He comes to us with a plethora of years of experience at West Geauga, both in the classroom and as an administrator. He graduated with his bachelor's degree from Hiram and his master's from John Carroll. So we certainly welcome him to the team.
Welcome,
Welcome.
Triple.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
This is now the second hearing of the public. Anyone that would like to speak or address the board can step up to the
I
microphone.
apologize, Mrs. Metzler. I should have abstained, Kevin, right? Isn't that the one I should abstain? I voted when I shouldn't have. I have a conflict with one of the hirings.
So you wish to change your vote to
I
abstain?
wish to change my vote to abstain, please.
Anyone that would like to address the board can step to the microphone at this time. All of the previous timeframes apply. And we move to other.
You want me to start first?
Yeah.
So for my report, I wanted to circle back around, as I normally do, to some of the items from last month that were mentioned in the hearing of the public. So the floor machine that was mentioned that has been down since April is due to parts being on back order. And another machine at this point, now that one was available, has been dropped off to us to use as a loaner in the interim. I know there was a question about the nurse and what we plan on doing about the nursing situation for next year. So we still do not have an open nurse position for next year. We will have the same sub who was filling in continue to start the year for us, and sub, which we are grateful to have her, which she was on the agenda and got approved this evening. There was a mention about purchase orders. Please note, purchase orders are certainly getting signed. We definitely are looking to be more cost-effective, though, getting quotes and looking to do more work in-house. As far as incentives for bus drivers to take trips, they do get paid time and a half once they go over their 8 hours. So that certainly is an incentive. I want to thank Mr. Riley, who applied for a water bottle refilling station grant in the amount of $4,475 through the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency. And so the grant that he wrote would add 3 additional water bottle filling stations at the middle school so that they would have a total of 4. We held our first Topic Tuesday yesterday that I talked about last month. Our topic was school safety. I would like to thank Mr. Markajon, who was the co-speaker on that. I thought it went very well. It went a full hour. I thought there was a lot of good discussion that happened. Please know that our next one will be August 16th, and you will see the sign-up and posting for that out probably a week prior to that. And the topic for August will be transportation. Some notes moving forward to the 22-23 school year. The state board passed a new increased promotion score for the 3rd grade reading guarantee. So it will go from a 683 to a 685. So they are increasing it by 2 points. Also, I wanted to give some updates. I know that Mr. Rome had talked about some summer projects when he last presented. So all of the sealing and patching has been done at both Cork and Austenburg. You'll see the newly painted lines in the lots. I think they look great. The mulch has been delivered to all 3 of the elementaries. It still needs to get spread, but it has been delivered. Both the courtyards have been sprayed. The ties have been put on the fence at Cork. The 2 broken signs from the snowplows at Austenburg and Cork have been removed. Certainly due to the people being out right now to assist with some of the summer cleaning, we have brought in a couple subs to help get the buildings ready. And Mr. Roma's been using those kind of as floating subs amongst the buildings to assist where needed. I also want to mention, as I know he's here, I had the pleasure of attending the Safety Town that happened on Monday and Tuesday this week, so I wanted to again recognize Mr. Cooper for his efforts on that. The kids there looked like they were thoroughly enjoying themselves. There were a plethora of, police and fire and EMS, and it was great. I went in the house myself that they filled with smoke, so that was kind of a neat experience, and the kids did wonderfully. So when I was in there, they were incoming second graders, and of course they talked about fire safety and what to do, and then they filled the room literally with smoke, and the little kids were great in getting out and going to the rally point, so it was really nice to see. So I'm certainly grateful that you guys provided that to our students, and I'm certainly sure that their families are probably grateful as well. Lastly, as a reminder, for those that do take advantage of the sales tax holiday, that will be August 5th to the 7th this year. So don't forget, that's the weekend that the state doesn't charge sales tax on several items for back to school specifically. August 5th to the 7th.
What is it called again, Terry? What was the name of?
The Ohio sales tax holiday.
Oh, just a holiday they call it, yeah. Okay, thanks.
I think this is like the 8th year maybe they've done it.
Yeah.
Or thereabouts.
It's definitely the 8th year I've missed it.
Are there any other topics for other this evening?
Madam President?
Yes.
The score raising from 683 to 685, the reading score, what sort of impact is that going to have, a 2-point increase?
That's a great question. Eventually they had it set so I don't know how many years down the road that they've plotted this out, because I think COVID kind of threw a wrench in it, but the goal is to get that score eventually up to 700. So they've been slowly increasing it over the years. My concern with COVID and still trying to close those academic gaps is it's going to be hard to reach that higher threshold, certainly.
So will 2 points, will that be impactful? We'll recognize that?
Yes.
Okay. And the water bottle refilling stations, I remember not too many years ago, students weren't allowed to have water bottles in the classroom or in the hallway, and they aren't allowed now.
Well, and again, I think COVID was a big game changer with that, not having the same kids repeatedly use water drinking, touching, pushing the button for the water drinking fountains. So a lot of schools have gone to the bottle filling stations.
Does the high school have them?
They
There's a
do.
couple out
I don't
here.
know how many exactly are in the high school. Do you know, Mr. Markerjon?
We have all three of our water stations.
Did you say 3? Yes.
The different restroom areas.
3 restrooms.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't see your fingers back there.
Not a problem.
Yeah, so the
It's
middle
almost like we need
school
more light.
only has 1 currently. So he had written the grant to add 3 additional ones so that the middle school will have 4.
Do our elementaries have them?
There you go, thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
So when do we find out about the grant, or did we get it?
We did not hear back yet,
Okay,
but he just recently submitted it, so.
okay.
Do they cost a lot, those refilling stations?
Well, for 3 of them, it's $4,400.
Yes, they're.
Yeah, man, why are they so expensive?
That's why you were.
I think we should negotiate with them.
Any other this evening? Okay.
I have handouts from Mr. Riley and Mrs. Porcello. We're not going to hear from them?
They are not presenting tonight, but I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you very much for dropping those off for our board members and everyone on the stage. Okay, I recommend that the board hold an executive session for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, and to consider the purchase of property for public purposes or for the sale of property at competitive bidding.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Are we coming back after?
I was going to say that right
I'm
after
sorry.
this. We will plan to come back and take action following our executive session. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes. Thank you all for your extended stay here this evening. As I said, we are planning to come back and take action. If you'd like to stay here, I can't tell you how long that will be, but it would be as fast as we possibly could do it. Thank you all.
Are we staying here or moving?
We're moving.
Are we going?